In Earth 8028 of the Fantastic Four universe, Sue finally became pregnant with her and Reed's first child, giving them for the first time a true sense of belonging. After years of battles, it finally felt like a moment to breathe had arrived. That night, the four of them stood together on the rooftop balcony, quietly gazing down at the peaceful city below. Suddenly, the night sky was torn apart by a blinding orange light. Johnny immediately transformed into the Human Torch and soared into the sky. Within the blazing flames, a silver figure slowly descended. She was the messenger of Galactus, the Silver Surfer. The sheer pressure radiating from her presence instantly threw the city into chaos. People stared in horror at the strange figure before them. Facing the unknown danger, the Fantastic Four quickly stood in front to protect the crowd. But the Silver Surfer had only one purpose: to tell humanity to prepare for their final farewell.
Your planet is now marked for death. Your world will be consumed by the Devourer. I herald his beginning. I herald your end. I herald Galactus.
Her chilling words were broadcast live by the media present. The Silver Surfer ignored everyone's fear and confusion, turning away without another word. Seeing this, Johnny immediately chased after her, eager to uncover the truth behind this mysterious visitor. But as he climbed higher, the oxygen thinned rapidly. The flames around him weakened and were on the verge of going out. Just before his fire completely died out, he grabbed onto the Silver Surfer's board. But the Silver Surfer leaned down and spoke to him in an ancient language he didn't understand.
Moha kumpiro ame.
Then, while Johnny froze in confusion, she turned and vanished at lightning speed. Soon, all of Earth was gripped by panic. No one knew where the Silver Surfer came from, nor what the Galactus she spoke of truly was. So the Fantastic Four began their investigation. A terrifying truth slowly came to light. 5 planets in nearby systems had already vanished, and before each planet disappeared, the same energy signature from the Silver Surfer had been detected. It seemed she had chosen each of these worlds deliberately. Perhaps Earth really would meet the same fate, just as she had warned. Reed immediately realized the gravity of the situation. He decided to take the initiative. The others quickly agreed to join him. Only Johnny remained lost in thought about what the Silver Surfer had said to him. He believed she wasn't as heartless as they thought. Even during their brief encounter, he had felt a trace of kindness in her voice. But the others dismissed it as Johnny's imagination. They thought he was simply dazzled by her beauty. With that, they turned and left. But Johnny didn't give up. He began studying the strange language she had spoken, until Sue came to tell him that Reed needed him. Reluctantly, he set his research aside for now. Reed had developed a new spacesuit that could sustain his flames in outer space. Johnny was thrilled by the news. With it, he wouldn't have to worry about his flames dying out like before. After completing their preparations, the four held a press conference. They announced their mission to return to space and confront the looming threat. They would find Galactus before he reached Earth, hoping to prevent the planet's destruction. The public cheered for their bravery, but only they knew that this would be a perilous journey, especially for Sue, who was pregnant yet still chose to join the mission. Reed's heart was filled with worry, but as heroes with powers, they had no choice but to stand up and protect humanity. So, after suiting up in their newly designed spacesuits, they boarded their spacecraft bound for space. The rocket's engines ignited, spewing bright fire into the sky. Everyone on the ground stared at it intensely, as if their gaze alone could weave a safety net around it. Within those eyes lay not only hope but also deep concern for the future. All they could do was wait for good news. Meanwhile, the team aboard the ship carried out their plan with precision. Sue successfully connected the ship to the hyperdrive system. Once the faster-than-light navigation was activated, their ship instantly surpassed the speed of light, setting course to find the Silver Surfer. Only by finding her could they locate Galactus. They began discussing their plan of action. They needed to stay united. Even though unknown dangers awaited them ahead, they knew this was their one chance to protect Earth. As their ship drew closer to the source of the signal, they began to grow puzzled. The Silver Surfer's energy clearly came from the nearby planet, yet there was no sign of Galactus. Then Reed noticed something strange on the scanner. The planet before them suddenly cracked open, and from within the fissure emerged a massive turbine-like structure. Trying to pull their ship into its vortex, Sue froze for just a moment, then quickly pulled the ship out of hyperspeed and veered it aside. At the same time, she cloaked the ship and hid behind a massive structure. It was a planet 13% larger than Earth, yet it had been effortlessly devoured by Galactus. Suddenly, a red beam enveloped the ship, pulling it rapidly toward the planet's core. No matter how hard they tried to steer, they couldn't stop it from descending deeper. All they could do was stabilize the engines to minimize the damage. Just then, a blue light swept across the ship, finally stopping on Sue's belly. Reed instantly felt a wave of dread. The next moment, the Silver Surfer burst into the ship. She came with a message. Galactus wanted to see them. Before leaving, she gave one chilling warning.
You should not have come.
Johnny fell silent, lost in thought. But before they could make sense of her words, the ship had already entered the planet's interior. They followed the Silver Surfer deeper inside. The exposed mantle was being devoured at a terrifying rate, and the ground was laced with massive pipelines, as if they were walking through a giant's bloodstream. Even the slightest tremor could wipe them out instantly. It was then they finally understood. Each of Galactus's feast was chosen by the Silver Surfer herself, but she didn't wish to explain further and turned to leave. Johnny, still full of questions, followed her. He asked what her earlier words truly meant. The Silver Surfer said it was a blessing to live and die with one's own kind. Johnny wanted to ask more, but his oxygen was running out. Helpless, he returned to his teammates. They slowly stepped onto a high ledge, watching the molten lava surge below, its turbulence mirroring their own unrest. At that moment, Galactus finally appeared. His immense form made them all instinctively step back. A crushing pressure filled the air. Before him, everything seemed as insignificant as dust. But Reed and his team couldn't give up. Reed firmly stated that he wanted to negotiate with Galactus. To their surprise, Galactus agreed. But his condition was chilling: Sue's unborn child, in exchange. For the child was born with cosmic energy, destined to inherit the cursed throne. Sue was stunned, refusing to believe it. They had already run every test on the baby. He was perfectly normal. Seeing their disbelief, Galactus's eyes began to glow with an eerie purple light, and under that light, Sue suddenly went into labor. As Galactus reached to take the child by force, Johnny, impatient and furious, attacked him head-on. The Silver Surfer followed quickly after him. Johnny darted through the boiling magma, but his oxygen was nearly depleted. As the Silver Surfer closed in, the thing rammed into her with full force, knocking her aside. Johnny used his last bit of oxygen to escape. Meanwhile, Reed carefully shielded Sue as they retreated. Just as they were about to leave, the Silver Surfer blocked their way again. The others were quickly taken down, leaving only Sue standing before her. But Sue didn't flinch. She unleashed her power, throwing the surfer back hard. But using her powers intensified her labor pains. The team stumbled aboard the ship, and Ben quickly blasted through the planet's crust, fleeing the dying world at full speed. But the Silver Surfer emerged from the magma once more and gave chase. Ben began preparing for hyperspace jump. When he saw the surfer closing in on the scanner, ignoring the jump misalignment, he forced the ship into hyperspace. At that moment, the Silver Surfer breached the ship. Just as she touched Sue's belly, the ship jumped successfully. They thought they'd finally escaped her, but she appeared again, right behind them. Johnny tried to blast her away with an energy beam, but the wormhole bent the beams out of path. He couldn't hit her at all. In a desperate move, Reed decided to steer into a black hole. If the surfer got trapped, it would take her at least a month to escape, but they too might never make it out alive. Yet at that moment, there was no other choice left. As the ship drew closer to the black hole, its hull began to twist under the immense gravitational pull. Reed wasn't sure if they could make it out alive. In the face of warped space-time, every plan seemed meaningless. Then Reed suddenly told Sue to cloak the ship. Sue gave it her all, for the sake of their unborn child. While the Silver Surfer's vision was distorted by the black hole, the ship quietly disengaged its hyperspeed drive. By the time the Silver Surfer noticed, it was too late. She could only watch helplessly as the ship escaped. They had finally escaped the surfer, but the danger wasn't over. Sue was about to give birth. She couldn't possibly hold on until they reached Earth. So Reed did his best to calm her down, helping her prepare for delivery. Meanwhile, the others worked hard to steer the ship away, and just as they cleared the black hole, Sue could no longer bear the pain. Through the sheer power of a mother's love, she gave birth successfully. Reed gently took the baby from Ben's hands. Seeing the baby's pure innocent smile, they both couldn't help but smile too. As the ship slowly descended to Earth, people everywhere waited anxiously for their return. For as long as they returned safely, it would mean the crisis might finally be over. When the crowd saw the baby in Sue's arms, they erupted into wild cheers. But none of the Fantastic Four were smiling. Soon, swarms of reporters surrounded them, asking questions about Galactus. Reed looked troubled, but he told them Galactus's demand. If they wanted Earth spared, they had to surrender the child. The public was furious that Reed refused. Billions of lives, all for one baby. Reed couldn't answer. He turned away and fled. He couldn't give up his child for humanity, nor sacrifice humanity for his child, so he threw himself into finding a solution, but found nothing. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer returned to Galactus. But Galactus was furious. The energy within the baby could end his eternal hunger. He had to claim the child. Elsewhere, Johnny was studying the Silver Surfer's language. If he could decipher even one phrase, he could decode the rest. But by then, Earth's sensors had detected Galactus's ship rapidly approaching. Fear and fury had overtaken humanity. Riots and chaos erupted across the world. Everyone blamed the Fantastic Four, demanding they hand over the baby. Upon hearing this, Sue smashed the television in anger. Meanwhile, crowds of protesters surrounded the Baxter building. Reed understood why they acted this way. His failure to find a solution had driven him to despair. Sue, knowing Reed better than anyone, sensed his resolve wavering, but she couldn't accept his thoughts. To her, their child meant everything. Yet she also knew their dire situation better than anyone. She had to take a stand. So Sue held Franklin in her arms and stepped into the crowd. She gave an emotional speech, saying that only unity could get them through this crisis. Her sincerity moved everyone. The hostility toward the Fantastic Four began to fade, and that moment inspired Reed. If they could teleport Earth somewhere Galactus couldn't reach, they could avert the catastrophe. He demonstrated with an egg. Teleporting Earth was no different from teleporting the egg. If they built a global teleportation network, they could safely relocate the planet. There wasn't much time before Galactus arrived, so, under the Fantastic Four's call, people all over the world began working together. In that moment, they put aside all prejudice and doubt. They united as one to defend their home. As Galactus's ship neared the moon, the teleportation bridges around the globe were finally finally complete. As the countdown ticked down, the systems began to activate. A shimmering field of light slowly enveloped the entire planet. But suddenly, a massive explosion erupted across several teleportation bridges. It turned out that the Silver Surfer had launched a swift assault on the bridges. With her incredible speed, she could destroy them all in an instant, until only one final teleportation bridge remained on Earth. Just as she was about to strike again, the Human Torch suddenly burst out, drawing her attention away. At the same time, he took control of the massive screens around them. He played the ancient phrase the Silver Surfer had once spoken. Then, a name appeared on the screen, making her stop in her tracks. She looked at Johnny in confusion. The Silver Surfer couldn't understand how Johnny knew about this. It turned out that ever since Johnny had learned the meaning of that phrase, he had been studying the ancient alien language ever since. By decoding signals from distant worlds, he uncovered a hidden truth. The Silver Surfer's real name was Sarah. She had once been a mother. When Galactus arrived, she sacrificed herself to protect her child. She willingly became Galactus's scout. She traded her freedom for the survival of her homeworld. Thus, Galactus transformed Sarah into what she is now. From then on, Sarah searched the cosmos for new worlds for Galactus to consume. Although her own planet was spared, countless others were destroyed because of her. The cries of the doomed civilizations pierced deeply into Sarah's heart. She could no longer bear the weight of her guilt. In the end, she refused to destroy the final teleportation device, and she fled without looking back. Although the last teleportation bridge was saved, the Fantastic Four's plan had completely fallen apart. At that moment, Reed looked down at the baby in the cradle. A bold idea suddenly came to his mind. If they couldn't teleport the Earth away, then they would teleport Galactus instead. He decided to gather all remaining energy to power the final bridge. The power could keep the portal open for 37 seconds. In that brief window, they could send Galactus to the far edge of the universe. To make it work, Reed was willing to use his own child as bait to lure Galactus in. Sue was torn apart inside, but she knew it was humanity's only remaining chance, so the team began their tense preparations. Sue sought the Mole Man's help to evacuate the citizens of New York. They also built a specially designed protective pod for the baby. It could shield him from any form of harm. Before Galactus's ship arrived, they had finally completed all their preparations. Soon, Galactus stepped down from his throne. His massive body plunged into the ocean, sending towering waves across the waters. Even the ground beneath them began to quake. He immediately began searching for the child's location. Galactus took one thunderous step after another. The violent tremors terrified those hiding underground. As he drew closer and closer to the baby, Sue and Johnny launched a coordinated attack against Galactus. While his vision was momentarily disrupted, Johnny quickly took the baby and handed him to a robot for protection. Meanwhile, Reed quietly placed an empty cradle where the baby had been. Galactus soon regained his focus and continued moving forward. Just one more step, and Reed could activate the teleportation switch. But suddenly, Galactus stopped moving. He scanned the area again and found the real location of the child. He turned sharply in that direction. The Fantastic Four realized their plan had been exposed and did everything they could to stop him. But their attacks didn't even faze Galactus. Sue piloted the invisible jet to block his path, but Galactus swatted her away like a fly. The thing was hurled straight into outer space. No matter how hard they fought, they couldn't stop Galactus from moving forward. Reed used his elastic body to climb onto Galactus's massive frame, trying to disable his energy ports, but he was caught almost instantly. Galactus stretched his body to the limit, leaving Reed screaming in agony. Luckily, Johnny and Ben rushed back just in time. They managed to save Reed before he snapped apart, but Galactus still took the child. Just as he was about to leave with the boy, Sue stood up once again. She tried to use her small frame to push back the towering being before her. Maybe it was the surge of a mother's strength, but Sue actually managed to push Galactus toward the portal. Seeing the fierce determination on Sue's face, Reed knew something was wrong. He wanted to stop her from draining her life force, but Sue told him to save their child first. After a brief hesitation, Reed ran toward the portal. With everyone working together, Galactus was finally forced into the portal's range. Johnny quickly hit the switch. Reed stretched forward and pulled the child from Galactus's grasp. Sue, with no more hesitation, used every bit of her strength to push Galactus through the gate. But then she slowly closed her eyes. Just when everyone thought it was over, Galactus emerged from the portal again. There were still 10 seconds left on the countdown. Without hesitation, Johnny decided to sacrifice himself. He was ready to ram Galactus back into the gate, but a silver figure moved faster than he did. Her eyes were filled with resolve. Sarah, the Silver Surfer, shot straight toward Galactus. The portal finally closed, and the crisis was over. The others rushed toward Sue, but lying on the ground, Sue was no longer breathing. No matter how hard Reed tried, she didn't respond. He collapsed into grief. He might have saved the world, but at that moment he was just a man who had lost the woman he loved. In despair, Reed placed their child gently on Sue's chest, hoping he could spend one last moment with his mother. Then something unbelievable happened. Sue suddenly came back to life. It was the child's hidden power that revived her. Then they finally understood why Galactus wanted the boy. But no matter what power he had, to Sue he would always be her little boy. To the rest of the world, the Fantastic Four had once again saved Earth. The admiration for them grew even stronger. 4 years later, Sue was sitting with little Franklin helping him read. But when she stood up to grab a book, she noticed a strange cloaked figure, talking quietly with Franklin. And that's where the film comes to an end. But the mysterious figure's appearance hinted that a new story was about to begin. Let's wait and see.